So this Stata tutorial video is going to cover really just some simple features of Stata. This one won't get into any of the particular procedures for doing ANOVAs or regression. This is more of just an introductory. Here's some of the general features and utilities we can use. In particular, we're going to show you how to customize the interface. And then I'll show you how to use the variable labels, and how to rename variables, and then also how to use the value labels. And then finally how to turn on the output log so you can save your results if you want to. So first, as you can see, I've already started up Stata. And this is the main window, this is the main interface, and this is how it usually starts up with, and this is kind of the default layout here. So over here on the left, there's this little part of the window that says review, and whenever we run different commands, those are going to be listed here. And so that way, whenever we want to rerun an older command that we've run previously, we can just click on that and it would show up again. Over here on the right, the first box is called variables, and right now there's no data set open. But when you open one, you'll notice there'll be a list of variable names. And then this one right here says properties. That's just a window that we can click on a variable and then change things, for certain properties of that variable. So first thing I want to show you though is this is what it usually looks like when you first install it. So I want to show you how to customize a few things. So first, here in the output area, if you want, you can right click and go to font, and that'll pop up, and then you can pick different font faces if you want, but you can also adjust the size. So if it's kind of small and you want it a little bigger, then that's all you need to do. If you right click in here again and go to preferences, there are different color schemes, you know, that you can use. So the standard one looks like that. I used the one called Ocean, but let's see, what else do we have? So just different color schemes. Like some will hurt your eye, like that would hurt my eyes. There's desert. So whatever you want. I kind of liked Ocean just because it wasn't quite so harsh on the eyes. So anyway, you can customize the output window like that. Now, usually I don't look at the review window too much, and I kind of like to have the variables. So you can move things around in here if you want. So for example, I'm going to take this one. I'm just going to click on the header bar here that says review. I'm just going to click on it and drag it, and it's going to let me move it if I want. So I usually have set mine up where I have my variables and variable property box over here on the left, and then I'll leave this open for now, but what I often do is there's this little press tag or thumbtack right here, and if I click that, it'll do an auto hide. So basically it's still there if I want it, but it kind of stays out of my way. But for now I'm going to just leave it open, so we have I'm going to click that so it's there. So that's how you can customize these menus and lay them out however you want. Okay, so the next thing I wanted to show you was how to name or rename variables and give them a variable label. So first, let's open a data set. And for this example, I'm just going to use just the first example data set from the two-factor between subjects ANOVA, which is available on Blackboard. So I'm just going to open that one up just to have a data set. So when you do that, of course, it gives you the command that says, okay, this is the file it opened. That's where it was. So at least you know which one is open. Now when I did that, by the way, you notice it has these three variables. So it listed those variables for me. and that's what's in the data set. If I wanted to see the data, I could just go up here and press the data editor button, and it would open up another window with the spreadsheet and data file in here. And so we can see, we have the method variable, which is a categorical variable with 3 levels, and we have gender, which is categorical with 2 levels, and then the dependent variable score, which is numerical. And it corresponds to this. This is the description of the data set and the analysis. And this, of course, is also available on Blackboard with that data set. And so just so you can see what we're going to be doing in particular, here's the layout. So that first variable that we call method has 3 levels. That's auditory, visual, and kinesthetic teaching methods. And then the second factor, factor B, which is gender, has 2 levels, female and male. So we'll come back to that in a second. For now, I wanted to just show you how the data looks in here. Now, if you want to change the name of a variable, so right now it's just the name is up here in the top. If I wanted to change that to, if I didn't like the name method for whatever reason, you could, if you wanted to. If you come over here, if you select that column that you're wanting to change the variable name, it'll change over here under the properties box. So if I wanted to call it, instead of method, if I wanted to call it, teaching, teach method or something, I could just come in here and replace the name and hit enter, and it'll rename it. So now if you notice, it says teach. So, but I'm going to return it back to the original name, since that's what's in the description in the accompanying file that describes the analysis. So I'm just going to put method back. Of course, you could also, instead of selecting a column, you could select it here in the list of variables, and it'll, if you notice, every time I do that, it changes this box to correspond to whatever variable I've selected. And you can actually, I'm going to close the data editor and go back to the main Stata window. You could actually do it here as well. Whenever you select the variable over here in this part, in the properties box, it actually shows up being locked just so you don't accidentally change anything. But you can actually, there's a little lock icon right here. If I do that, it'll unlock it if I just click on it. So we could have done changing the variable names here just as easy. You don't have to open the data editor to do it. So, for example, if I wanted to change that method to, back to teach, that's all I have to do. But I'm going to leave it that way. So anyway, that's how you would change a variable's name if you wanted to. Now, that's just the name that you can use. That's just the name it gets for Stata. That's the name that you have to refer to it whenever you're doing, when you put the name in the command or in the pop-up boxes that have all the analysis options. If you wanted to give it a better description, a more descriptive term rather than just method, there is right below where it says name, there is another little slot that says label, and that's the variable label. So instead of, if I want to give it a more descriptive name, I could just call this one teaching method. And that's it. It's enter after I do that. And if you notice, after I do that, it shows up, the label shows up here. So that's really useful sometimes if you have a lot of variables and you may have to abbreviate the names sometimes, so you may not know what exactly is that. So it's a good way to remind yourself which variables are which. Here it's pretty obvious what these variables are. And also it will use the labels in some cases, in some analyses, and then when it makes graphs, it will use the word teaching method instead of just a simple method. And you can do that on all of them. So for gender, you could put a more descriptive label if you want. You could put gender of student if you wish. In score, you can also do the same. You could put, So I believe in this example it's a achievement test score. Yeah. So if you wanted to, you could put a descriptive label in here for so now of course if you want that to stay a permanent part of the file, you just need to click save, and it will ask, because it's going to write over the existing one. It always asks this for some reason. You sure you want to save this? So yes. So now those are a permanent part of the file that I have saved on my local hard drive. Again, the file you download will be, of course, just these variable names without any labels attached. Okay, so that's how to manipulate the variable names and their labels. Now there's another issue, or another feature, that are called value labels. A little bit different. Those are really useful with these categorical variables, because so far, we open the data editor again, so far we just, have been using these code numbers 1, 2, and 3 for the 3 levels of method, and then 1 and 2 for the 2 levels of gender. And so we have to remember, ourselves, okay, which was one male or female, I don't remember. So you can actually attach text labels to each of these values, which will make it a little easier to recall which level is which, and it'll use those tags in the output sometimes, and then also in the graphs. So let me close the data editor again. What we'll do is, if you go to the data menu, then down to data utilities, then over to label utilities, and then finally down to manage value labels. If you do that, then this little dialog box will pop up. Okay, so when you do that, we don't have any value labels for this data set, so I'll click on the button that says create label. Now the first thing we have to give the label itself just a name, just so it can be stored with that, under a heading of some sort. So we're going to do let's do the labels for the first variable, method. So I'm just going to call it method underscore labels. And this is just so the computer has a name to store this set of under. Okay, now real quick, let's look back here. So the first one is, we have, for the first factor, method, we have 3 levels: auditory, visual, and kinesthetic. So which is 1, 2, and 3. That's how we coded it in the data file. So let's do that here. So the value is 1, and the label for group 1 was auditory. Okay, and hit add. See, 1 auditory. Now let's do the next one, 2, which was visual. Add, and the last one was 3, which was kinesthetic. And hit add. Okay, so we've got all our labels in, and that should be it. So I'll click OK. And now, if you notice, it gives it the name, method labels. If you want to see, you could click the little scroll down, or whatever these things are called, the plus minus boxes that undo stuff. And you can open it and you can see, oh, one is, you see right there, that's how it's mapped out. Okay, great. Now we have another variable we want to do this for, so let's create another label. So I'm just going to call this gender labels. And the first one was female and the second was male. Okay, so one is female, add. Group 2 is male, add. Okay, I'm done with that. Click OK. And so now we have those two. So that's all we need to do to actually create these and then store them in Stata with this data file. So we've created them. Now let's close this box. Now if we actually want to use them right now, if you notice, well, nothing's changed. Still the same. But let's say that, okay, let's say now that we want to actually use them, let's attach them to a variable. So for the method variable, let's say here's a little, if you notice here in the properties box, there's a little line here for value labels, and if you go over here, there'll be a drop down box you can open up, and look, you can pick whichever one you want. And this one's methods, so there. I've attached it to the methods label set of labels we've created, as it now attached to that variable method. Let's go to gender and find its labels. Perfect. Okay. So now what does that mean? Well, now let's look at the data again. Now you can notice it shows up as blue to remind you that this is just a convenient way to remind you that these are labels, that it's still a number. You know, this is still auditory, so it's still 1. It's just for the purposes of display, it's going to display this little tag or this label for that particular level or value of method. And so, and those were the second level, and those were the third level. So, and if you decide you don't like to see those, if you want to, you can come back in here, and if you just select none, it'll turn it off. So I just turned it off for gender. Let's look back at the data. So data's back to normal. When you see it in black, that's how it's actually stored in the data file. When it shows up as blue, that's just saying, okay, it's not really stored as text, it's stored as a number, but here is the value label you've attached to it. And again, you can do the value labels from this window as well. Whenever you're in the data editor, you can still, I'm going to move these over just so they're like the other window. Okay, so you can do the same thing in this window. I'm just going to turn the gender label back on. Yeah, you can see, there it is. Now that I've created these two sets of labels, I do want to go ahead and save the data file again so that it stores those labels in there now. If you just close it out, without saving it, you'll lose those labels. So okay, so those are value labels. Now, if you notice, by the way, we've been using the menus, but if you've noticed, everything that we've done, it shows you what command has been run every time we did something. So even the value labels we could have done using just the type in commands. If you notice, so like whenever we made the value labels for method, that was actually the command that was written. And it also shows up over here, so we can see in the review box. So you can see the previous commands run. And if you want to repeat one, you just click on it, and it would show up in the command box. But we don't really want to redo anything. We've already done everything we wanted. So, so the last thing I was going to show in this video is how to save your output when you do an analysis. So first thing I'm going to do though is I'm going to clear the output screen. So I'm going to type CLS, and that'll just, the only thing that the CLS command, the only thing it does is that's short for clear screen. So it just clears the output, doesn't change, doesn't erase data or anything, just clears this output area. Okay, so say that you want to save your output for homework or an analysis you're running. A lot of times you could just copy what comes up on the screen and just paste it into Word or a text document. But if you're wanting to just save it as so you have a permanent record somewhere, there's an easy way to do that. So what I will suggest is up here in the menus there is a little icon, that if you hover over it, you hover your mouse over it, it says log. And so the way Stata will record your output is it'll make a log file. So click that, and it'll pop up a box and ask you, what do you want to name this? And so, you have to just give it some name. So I'll just, output file 1. And it gives you an option, save as type formatted log, and just a regular log. I recommend just leaving it as formatted log. Well, it just looks better. It's easier to read. So I'm going to save it in here. It will save it with. It'll try to save it in the directory or the folder that your data file's in, but you don't have to save it there. But anyway, just once you hit save. So once you do that, it turns the logging on. And if you notice, there's a little box here that says log on. And so basically it's saying, okay, now your output's being recorded. So anything you do, it will write it, whatever output you get, it's going to write it to this log. So let's just run just a couple simple little things on this data set. I'm just going to have it do just some descriptive statistics. So that so I'm going to go to statistics, summary tables, summary descriptives. No, okay, let's go down to other tables instead. Yeah, compact table, flexible table. Well, I'll talk about this in more detail in another video as to how to use this, but just for the sake of demonstration, I'm going to use the flexible table of summary statistics. And I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about what I'm doing here. This will be covered in a different video. But so the row variable, I'm going to put method there, and then the column. Since I have another categorical variable, I want to have sort of a two-way table. So I'll put gender in the columns, and then I want to get the frequency, or I'm sorry, the mean of the dependent variable score. Okay. And so that's what I want to do. I'm just going to click submit, and it does it. So these are the means. These are the cell means. So 41.6667 is the cell mean for the female students that receive the auditory teaching method. Okay. Now I'm just going to close out of that one. Now let's say I wanted to run just the ANOVA, a two-way ANOVA. So, and again, this will be covered in a different video. So I'm going to do this very quickly, just to show you what the output looks like and how the log saves it. Let's see. Oh, linear laws related. Okay. So I'm just going to type this in. You don't have to do this. There's a the other video will go into more detail because you don't have to type in these things. There's a different way to do this, but again, this is just to give you a quick example. Click submit. All right. So it's giving us our output there. So let's say that we've done all our analyses now and we're done. We're done with our analysis, so we're done with the log. We come back up here to that button that says log, and we just click it again, and it's going to ask you, okay, are you wanting to pause it, so suspend it, or do you want to close it, or do you want to view it? I guess basically it would show you what you've recorded up to this point if you wanted, but I'm just wanting to close it, so I'm going to click close log file. All right, so it tells you, okay, it's closed. Here's where it's located, and then you notice that that notification that was here that said the logging was on is now gone. So let's now let's say that we wanted to actually see what we came back later and we said, okay, now we want to see what we've done. We would go to, let me see, File, Log, and then View. And it'd ask you, okay, you know, navigate. So you click Browse and navigate to the file. So here's the one we just recorded, output file 1. And it would open it up in this little viewer window here, but you can see these are the exact same things that we just ran. And this is essentially, it's text, so you can copy and paste these however you want. But it shows you exactly what you've run. So just like it showed up in the output, and here it is. So it's in a separate viewer window. But anyway, so those are some of the basics. I may make more videos about, you know, basic features of Stata as needed, but the remaining videos will be more focused on specific statistical procedures. So the next one that's going to be made will be the one on how to run everything you need to run to do a two-factor between subjects ANOVA. So, anyway.